Boo. Peugeot.
Peugeot.
Can of lighter fluid and a dry matchstick dropped on a pile of damp wood.
John, that's a yellow card. You said the word tarmac.
Oh, sorry.
Welcome back to the Traction Control. What's it called again? Let me just start again.
Traction Control Podcast. You were 2 out of 3.
You were literally one word away there, Tom.
Let's
keep going.
I overthought if it has traction.gg in there. All right,
Traction.gg control.podcast.
It's the worst intro ever, but we're rolling. Okay, so here we are at the Traction Control Podcast.
Out of practice.
Tom and Tom are back to join John. Excellent work from Ross for standing in last week. I'm really tired. Tom's okay because we were in America. Austin, Texas for a week. Weren't we, Tom?
We went to South by Southwest, which is a big, it's a music and film festival, but it also has quite a significant, what they call an innovation track, which is essentially a lot of panels and events to do with tech. And specifically this year, there was quite a lot about journalism, media, and the problem or not of AI. So everything to do with the new SEO, AEO, GEO. It was very interesting. We learned a lot, and hopefully we can use some of that to make what we're doing better. But no amount of panels can fix that intro, Tom, I'm afraid.
No, I know. I do regret now. We should have gone back and restarted. But well, anyway, we're in the midst.
No amount of abbreviations either.
Anyway,
we also had a lot of smoked meats. We tried grits. You insisted, despite being in the home of Tex-Mex, you insisted on having a Chinese one night at PF Chang's, which was great. And maybe most excitingly, we had about 14 journeys in a autonomous Waymo taxi, which was actually not as scary as I thought it was going to be.
No, the first one is scary, and then the rest are just like, oh, this might be a bit better. But anyway.
Yeah, we were actually, after we'd had about 7 Waymos, we then had a taxi with a real person, and we spent the entire time just talking about how good the Waymos were. Yeah. And the poor taxi driver was sat at the front thinking, oh, God.
We'll deal with the gig economy another time. But I will also say, one of the panels was about the video game industry as well, which is really interesting, and looking at the overall impact of the state of play. And after a couple of years of contracting after COVID, last year was a growth period again. But not necessarily from big AAA studios, but from smaller and medium-sized studios, which I found fascinating. And to me, one of those medium-sized studios is Milestone. It's a segue because...
Beautifully done.
Yes, we've gone from Chinese to Milestone.
Yeah, it's not a good segue if you point it out, though, so a bit stupid of me there. But Screamer is releasing tomorrow at the time of you hear this, but we already have our review out. And if you're really rich and want to waste a lot of money, you can buy it now early for the Super Max Premium Edition. But we gave it an 8 out of 10. And more importantly, it's a non-sim, non-serious, arcade, fantastical racing game with good production value. Is this a good thing for the industry, John?
Yes, it certainly is. The screenshots from that game, the imagery, the artwork is spectacular, and it's bright and it's colourful and it's fun. And the energy that gets produced from just watching even the trailers or watching gameplay and the cutscenes and the characters, it's vibrant, it's great, but more importantly, as you say, it is what the industry needs. I think there have been a lot of authenticity-heavy sim racing titles, which is fantastic, and we need all of those too. But because the technology's been there to make realistic, modern, sim racing titles these days, so many companies are going down that route. You actually sometimes miss a little bit of that unserious fun and also just creativity that comes with a game that doesn't have to be grounded in realism. It's been a good start for the year for non-sims, and Screamer is just a continuation of that and almost a culmination of all of that. It's a great looking game, and I'm very excited to play it some more.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. You kind of summed up my thoughts on it too. It looks like there's a lot of energy coming from that game. I do really like the art style. The music is great. I liked the stylized cutscenes. I like that they try and be a little bit edgy with the script and the characters. It's not for me, if I'm being honest. Not my kind of game. But it looks great. So yeah, fine, great.
Our full review is on the Traxion.gg website, which is updated daily. Quick plug. But Martin covered this game for us. A fantastic review. You can also watch that in video form on the YouTube channel. But more, and I do recommend it even if you're only into Sims, because it is something different. and let's see if it is a sales success or not. I think we both mentioned on the previous podcast that it might not be. But they're pushing hard, and I think we do need more racing games like this to try and bring people into racing games in general. And like you said, John, great start to the year for lots of more accessible racing games, and there's going to be more very, very soon. But we'll talk about those another time because we've got some cool stuff in the works. However, on the more serious note, Moza Racing, perhaps best known for a surfeit of wheels and wheelbases and pedals, and shifters and stuff. They're now moving into motion rigs for the first time. And, well, Tom, let's go for you on this one because there's some really different and interesting stuff with this.
So there's two stories here. One is the application of AI in their motion product, which they showed off at GDC. Now, this one is really interesting because there's obviously a leader in this space, and it's D-Box, and D-Box have been there for decades. The origin story of D-Box is essentially a guy that was sat watching a film in his cinema room, sat on the subwoofer. The subwoofer was vibrating as the volume got louder when he was watching the film. He thought, "Oh, this is cool. I'm sat on the box and I can feel the film," and that is where the name came from, the box, D-Box, because in the 90s you put "da" instead of the. And it makes it cooler, right? So that's where D-Box came from. It was about haptics and it was about movement when you're watching films. Since then, obviously, they brought out the motion. What are we on the G5 at the moment? The G5 actuators for sim racing. Now, the thing about this is that both for games and for films, they have to be encoded. So the hardware, the D-Box hardware, has to be encoded. So every single film. An engineer has to watch the film and then manually encode a D-Box script, let's call it, right? So that it plays alongside it. Sim racing is slightly different because it uses the telemetry. So whatever you do is what it is reacted to by the actuators, right? So it's slightly different. Now, the interesting thing about Moza is that what Moza is doing is it's watching the screen. It's looking at the visuals, and then it's using AI to determine what that would feel like, which means you don't have to decode, you don't have to do the encoding, which means they could, in theory, use the same technology and you could watch any film with this AI-powered encoding motion. It also means that it's not just sim racing that you could use this with, where the telemetry is providing the movement of the actuators. It means you could play any games. You could play Call of Duty, and the Moza software would watch your game, and it would, using AI, it would predict what the movement might feel like or what movement to provide in order to accentuate the movement or impact or shot or explosion that you're watching, right? So that's the theory. And if they can nail that, then it's a real industry game changer, I think. However, the proof is in the pudding, right? Because just because it's AI doesn't mean it's good. And I imagine that there will be some kind of fidelity and realism lost when an AI looks at something versus an engineer encoding it manually. But I do believe that it will get to a state where it just will be better and it will be more scalable. And, all of a sudden, every single film will be available on the Moza library that you can watch in your sim rig. The other thing that they've done is they are taking the concept of an AI racing coach, which has been done. There's the likes of Trophy.ai, Track Titan, etc., that do this. They read your telemetry, and then they tell you where you can go faster. And they've got, the Trophy AI, for example, has the voice coach that tells you live where to brake later or whatever. But Moza have developed their own, which is interesting because they're also a hardware provider, and they have capitalized on that monopoly by reverse engineering the AI coaching, by essentially making the wheel move as it should, as per the optimal line. What I mean by that is there is a mode whereby you sit in your Moza rig and it will take you around the perfect line and you just hold onto the wheel, but the wheel moves for you. So you can essentially cheat muscle memory. So you can just kind of like see what it feels like. So, when they're easing off, when they're turning in, how much wheel to use at the apex, all this sort of stuff. Again, proof is in the pudding. Is that useful or not? Does that work if you're kind of passively involved in the process rather than actively involved? I don't know, but I really admire Moza for kind of pushing the boundaries of what's already been done.
I have the usual concerns here with sort of fail safe. So the idea of something else controlling what happens through your hands in terms of the training. What if that goes wrong? And also the same question over the actual motion, using AI to speak to games. But that's probably an argument that people will shut me down instantly, because you could say that about so many things, right? Any kind of motion platform could malfunction, could start going crazy. Any kind of, whether it's AI or not, any sort of direct drive wheelbase could go crazy. And we've seen that happen in the past. I've experienced it. So I think you'll have to sort of fend off the usual pushback on that side of things. But in terms of technology, I think it's definitely something that could be the start of the next chapter, if you like, in that particular industry. I think more importantly, this could be huge for Moza specifically, because obviously sim racing can be quite niche, and Moza have focused on, yes, sim racing, but also flight sims and things like that. But if Moza can produce a product that everyone could be interested in within the gaming world, whether it's people that play Call of Duty or games that have nothing to do with sim racing, then I think Moza could hugely benefit from this if they get it right.
Yeah, it was showcased at GDC with Grand Theft Auto, for example. But at a show like that, no one's been able to properly test any like latency or weird quirks and things going on. But maybe it's more for the less serious sim racing games and, like what Tom was saying, like the movies and the Call of Duties and stuff. It also leads me on to a comment from Mike on Track recently on one of the podcast episodes. I would love to see AI race engineer to help with setups during practice. I think this is kind of what Trophy AI already offers in a way. I'm struggling with Understeer Turn 9 and Turn 10 and would like suggestions that are relative to your current setup for you to try. Okay, so maybe AI is more driver coaching. This would be more setup coaching. Do you think there are other uses for AI in sim racing that we've not seen? Well, I think Moza answered that question.
Yeah, totally. And I would say that I think we should probably judge, at the moment, we should judge this product on its ambition rather than its current
Correct.
state.
Because
it's brand new, right? And it's like any new technology, the first iteration will always be the worst. You hope it would be the worst. And so, yeah, there'll be niggles, there'll be bugs, etc. But I think the direction is really innovative. And I think the thing I take away from this is that I think the reason that Moza are killing it is because, Moza is a Chinese brand. And in the West, there is a stereotype that Chinese products are cheaper but worse, and they're copycats of everything, right? Now, obviously, we don't know whether or not there is copycatting going on, but this is a real proof point that there is genuine innovation coming out of that company. So it could put those foibles to bed a little bit. Just on this, there are tools that exist that will use AI to help you build a setup. I don't know if it's necessarily voice activated like Mike on Track is suggesting, but a chat bot, for example, that sits in your window, watches you do a few laps, and then you say, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. And it'll say, well, you should try increasing or decreasing the ride height at the front or the back or that exists already.
Just on Mike on Track's comment there as well, we did actually make a video a few years ago about where we think AI could go within the world of racing games and sim racing. I would be fascinated to watch that video back now myself, because I can't actually remember what we said in that video.
I can't remember.
But we certainly talked about AI engineering and the AI spotter, for example, just some sort of simple stuff, but also then things that could be taken further, like how AI could maybe be used to create better fictional tracks or even to recreate realistic tracks, things like that. And I think the video went pretty unhinged towards the end. And I'm intrigued to see if any of those things that we mentioned in the video that didn't exist at that point do now exist.
Before we move on, I have one thing I'd like to say finally about the Moza story, and that is bingo.
Yes. So in the email newsletter, Traction Control email newsletter that Tom creates every week in your inboxes every Tuesday morning, you can sign up on the website. There was in a previous episode a bingo board, right, where you predicted for the year ahead, and this is a strike, isn't it?
It is. It's a strike across. So I think there's a few things that need to fall into place before I can get a line, or heaven forbid, a full house. But one of the things was Moza announces a motion system. Yeah. Happy with that. 1 down, 8 to go.
I've got one more thing which you can help to fill Tom's bingo card. We need Traxion to reach 150,000 subscribers.
Yes.
So listeners of the podcast who aren't subscribed to the main Traxion channel, go and subscribe so that Tom can tick off his bingo card, and we can
right
all
in the
happy.
middle.
And
it's
that's
the middle of the block.
That's definitely not a shameless plug right there.
Right, we're definitely moving on now to Assetto Corsa Rally. This is very nerdy, but basically, this game is in early access. We're all really enjoying the updates that they're bringing and the pace. They said previously that they would like to aim for an update every month, or sometimes it might be a bit longer than that. However, now it has formally changed. So Irvin Zonka, the game lead, was on a Discord Q&A. We've got a story on the website about this. But they're aiming for now the next update to arrive in April. So that is end of next month. A small update, quote unquote. And then a much larger one, but not until June. So things are not slowing down, but they definitely changed in terms of updates. And he also mentioned a Subaru and a Peugeot from the 1990s will be the next car, which was very vague. So Ross has done some amazing nerding on our website with the selected models we think it could be. And also he's got all his own pictures from Knockhill Rally events. And I'll tell you, no other website's got that on the internet. Just quickly, John, which of these Subarus and Peugeots would you like to see?
Well, yeah, what would I like to see versus what I think we'll see? I would love to see a Group A Subaru, whether that be the Legacy or the Impreza, but I'm going to say number one has to be the other one. It's the WRC spec, late 90s Subaru. So the 97 spec would be the one for me. And for Peugeot, to give us something different, I would love to see the 306 Maxi F2 kit car, because if we saw the 206 WRC car, it's another one for the same class. I think an F2 kit car would be beautiful to look at. It would sound amazing. It would give us something different and unique. So those are my two picks. So
I agree with the Peugeot. I think the Subaru, I would like that Subaru, but I think it might be the earlier 90s one, just based off a hunch, the Group A one. 95 McRae Championship winning one, but we'll see. Tom, any thoughts on perhaps just sort of slowing down the cadence of early access just to make sure things are correct?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because AC Rally came out the blocks really quickly and really well. I remember at Sim Racing Expo, we were there at the launch event, and we'd heard the rumblings that it was going to be a rally game. We were very excited when that was confirmed, and then quick as a flash, it kind of stagnated immediately. But at the same time, if this is a game that's designed to be the number one spot in the best rally games list for 10 years, then it makes sense. Oh, it's interesting, not to go back over old ground, but I was listening to the John and Ross episode from last week, and I noted that AC Rally currently sits number 3 in your list of best rally titles. I wonder if you changed the list, right? I'm moving the goalposts, changed the rules a little bit, and said, what is the best rally physics baseline experience? So take away the fact that there's less content, take away the fact that there's less or there's fewer modes to race in. But in terms of what it feels like to drive, where would it be in the list then? 1, 2, or 3? Because my hunch is it would be the baseline is incredible, and so once they scale the content, which, as you quite rightly pointed out, might be a bit more difficult because of the high standard to which they're producing at. I don't know. I can see this being, the new RBR for 20 years.
It would be number 2, quite simply, because Richard Burns Rally with mods, we've got to be careful, with mods, with the RSF version, is still fundamentally a safer and wider ranging base for the physics, and there's still work to be done on that department for Assetto Corsa Rally, especially with tarmac. But I will be clear as well, this was Ross's specific top 10. If it had been my own, I honestly think I would have started by wanting to put AC Rally higher, but because the list was about an overall gaming experience, Dirt Rally 2.0, which was ahead of it, is still, when you do take into account all the other things, content and readiness, Dirt Rally is a better game. But yeah, in terms of physics, for me, it would have to be a number 2, with potential definitely to be number 1.
Yeah. So two quick things there. Irvin Zonka, the lead, he mentioned on this Discord Q&A that they are planning for this to, you mentioned there, Tom, really good point, like, the next 10 years. It does sound like that's also the plan. Right? They're not going to stop supporting this. They do also say they will look at mods, but only after version 1.0, which makes complete sense to me. And then the other thing is, John, that's a yellow card. You said the word tarmac. All right, moving on.
Oh, sorry. That's your fault.
I honestly thought that the yellow card was coming out for the pronunciation of Peugeot.
Well, that's a long-running thing.
Oh, I'm sent off.
2 years.
People in Scotland say it
Quick
differently
succession.
to the UK, but we're both wrong because we're neither like what they say in France. So there we go.
Peugeot.
Anyway,
Peugeot.
Bit of ASMR for you mid-episode there. Peugeot.
Right. So full send or dead end before we get down a terrible rabbit hole there. So this is where we say I posit an opinion or a question, and we say full send is good or dead end is bad, and we discuss why. So I'm just going to go out with this first one. The Project Motor Racing patch 2.0, which is due this week, will be the savior of the sim. Tom, full send or dead end?
I'm going to say dead send.
Okay, that's an interesting one. John?
Dead end for now.
Okay, I'm going to say dead end as well. Next one is F1 Sim Racing, which is the official Formula 1 esports competition, which is starting again soon, will reignite sim racing esports. John, I'll go you first this time.
Dead end.
Tom?
Full send.
Okay, that's fine.
Half send.
Yeah, half send. I agree with you totally. Well, I'll go full send, and I'll justify it in a minute. Okay, so we'll just do these two this week, but we'll come back next week with a few more. So, PMR patch 2.0 is a savior of the sim. I think I'll go with Tom. Whatever you said first, because I can't remember.
I went with dead send.
That's it.
Right.
It was confused me.
Because I have some issues with the naming of 2.0 makes it sound like a full rebuild,
Yeah,
new
ridiculous.
start. There's something fundamental that's changed, right? Now, I could be wrong, but given that they just laid off all their staff, or a decent portion of their staff, it's not a rebuild in the last few weeks, right? It unless they've just been pulling all-nighters and have unlocked some sort of magic loophole I don't know. It just feels like 2.0 is really setting the bar high for what is essentially just a big patch from what I can see. The thing is, the reason I said dead send is because it is a send, right? To go out and say, right, we realize that what we did before didn't hit the mark, and so we want to address that with a significant relaunch, right? To get that message out there that, yeah, we know that the last one was rubbish, and these are all the things that we fixed, and we're really excited to bring you this, right? That in itself, I think, is great, because if you just not acknowledged the flop of the launch, then I think the community, they're going to have a hard time getting on side. So making a big effort for it, yes. I think if they'd said patch 2.0 is coming out in September 2026, and these are all the things we're going to, then I'd be like, okay, that's 6 months. They've realized the fundamentals, and that there's a community question coming up, which I'll hold off diving into this too much right now, because I want to kind of dive into the community questions a bit later. I think if they said in 6 months' time, then I'd have believed it and thought, okay, they're really going to town on addressing all of these shortfalls. Great. The fact that it's so soon after launch, 2.0 just feels... I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope I'm wrong. I hope they've really unlocked something fundamental in the physics, and all of a sudden it is going to be the game that we dreamed it would be. But I don't know. I think it's going to take more than this one patch.
Two reasons for me for going dead end. One is more uncertainty. I don't know yet what the update exactly is going to entail. And by the time this podcast goes live, I might do, but I need to see it to know exactly what is going to make it the savior before I can make a full judgment on that. And I don't want to presume it's going to be the savior. And part two to that is, to me, there were too many issues with too many different areas of the game. So it's going to take longer to be in a state where you could say this is a savior, because for me, it's not just about the physics, which are inconsistent and sometimes good, but a lot of the time not good. It's not just about the AI. It's not just about the career mode structure, the performance, the glitches. All of these things are too many things to put together to actually be able to fix in one update this soon after launch. Like, I think there's a lot of work to be done, and it's going to take a lot of time with a smaller team. So that's why I've gone dead end.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. This is coming, it was released in November, and this is coming out at the end of March, so you've got 4 and a bit months. Patch 2.0 is a terrible name for this, because I think it sets the wrong expectation. However, open-minded still, we will have coverage of what it's like soon after this podcast is released. So stay tuned on the website and the YouTube channel. That's the current plan. And we'll find out for definite. But ahead of trying that, and before we go hands-on, it's a dead end for me. It will not be the single savior, because there's just too much to do. And I think there's inherent fundamental challenges that would almost have to be a sequel, I think, to really turn it around. So we'll see. So then the next one was F1 Sim Racing will reignite sim racing esports. Tom, you went full send. Tell me why.
Well, If I'm being honest, the reason I went full send is because I knew that you two would both go dead end. And so it was a way of shoehorning a bit of back and forth, banter into the podcast episode. Because honestly, I feel like it's difficult to reignite something that was never really, it was never more than like a whimpering flame just during COVID for a bit and then died down anyway. So reignite is a generous term to use. I think tens of thousands of people will watch it. Dozens will comment in the live chat, and it will happen, and then it will disappear, and then it will happen again next year. I don't know. It's I just can't get excited about it. I wish I could, because I used to watch it all the time. I get more excited by the likes of PSGL and WOR, like the community racing stuff that always have thousands of people and hundreds of people in the live chat because they genuinely care about it. Also, half the F1 esports drivers have said that they're not involved anymore, which sounds like they've changed the format to the extent where like the OGs aren't interested in it anymore. And it feels like it's a pared back version of what it used to be. Yeah. But no, full send.
Full send. Yeah. Also, I believe it's correct that 2 of the teams in the real world Formula One racing season are not present. So effectively, Sauber's withdrawn from it because Audi's not on the virtual grid, we think, and Cadillac has not entered. So that's a bit of a shame. John?
It's a can of lighter fluid and a dry matchstick dropped on a pile of damp wood, and it's not going to reignite it. But I mean, and maybe briefly, maybe there's a temporary little burst, but it's the overall industry is not going to be relit from this. It's maybe just a one-off. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
We will certainly watch and report, and if it is, and we're not quite sure yet, live on the main Formula One YouTube channel, that's such a huge audience, so the numbers will be amazing. I did, and the reason I've raised this is because I did see on LinkedIn over the weekend a lot of people going, sim racing has needed this, it's the pinnacle one, and I actually do understand that there might be some trickle-down effect, but I think
trickle down.
Yeah, I know, sorry. That's a yellow card for me. But I don't think it's as strong as impactful as it has previously been before, like you mentioned there, Tom. So we shall move on. Anyway, right, community questions. And we'll rapid fire through these. So here's from Nuke Shot Media. Must admit, I'm pretty concerned that we haven't seen or heard anything about the IndyCar game, which is due out this year, outside of tracks being added to regular iRacing. Well, I'm just going to jump in on this one, if that's all right. I agree. We've not seen anything for it. However, we don't know for sure when it's going to release, and I suspect it might be towards the end of the year, and in which case there's no need to panic just yet. If you think about a Formula One game, they don't really unveil it till like a month or two before it launches. Second thing is, those tracks being added to regular iRacing are for the IndyCar game as well. So in effect, you are seeing something about the IndyCar game because they're updating the cars and the physics and the Indy NXT and all the tracks for this reason.
This is a company that have released lots of games in the past and games in solid states, and they have a reputation, and therefore I'm not concerned either. And I think there's 2 ways people can go about this. Sometimes companies, when they're in the middle of developing a game, want to show off every new feature as it's being developed. Here's this pretty screenshot, here's this beautiful new mode or this feature, and that almost is more concerning because then you're showing your best hand. If you're showing nothing, you're working on building the game in the background, maybe you're not too worried. So it's, for me, the same as you, Tom. It's not time to get concerned yet.
All right, we'll move on to the next one, which is from Tabs1913. And this is not really a question, it's an observation, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go with this, but I have half an idea. Driver 3, or Driv 3, as the Traxion editorial team, we have a mandate, we have to call it that, was a really good driving story game, sorry. Not necessarily a really good game overall, but anyway. Not saying they should go for crime angle, but there's gameplay that they could definitely be inspired by, potentially other developers there. And I think that's great. I think if we look at Screamer, actually, it's not a crime angle, but it's story-led. And we think Maverick Games' game coming out soon is story-led. So basically, I'm going to twizzle this around a bit and say, is there space for some more story-based driving games?
Personally, I love them. I think it's if you're somebody who can't, and I said this, I think I've already done this point to death. But if you're somebody who doesn't have the time to practice to the point where you feel comfortable racing online on something like iRacing or ranked racing, then finding another outlet to drive within, like a campaign, a story mode, is perfect for somebody who can jump in for an hour, might not play again for another week. And it's nice to have a broad range of mediums in which to use your rig. I think so. Variety is the spice of life. So yeah, 100%.
Same for me. Love story modes personally, and I think we could do with more of them. I enjoyed the Grid Legends story, despite it not being the best story ever made. I really enjoyed the 9 story mode on the MotoGP game a few years ago, and I love the old Toka games as well. So for me, yeah, absolutely, there's space for it, but that doesn't mean they would be successful, because look at Grid Legends. I mean, you could argue about whether that was successful or not, but put it this way, I'm not expecting to see another Grid game anytime soon. That IP, I think, has been put to rest for the time being. So I would like it, but would do enough people? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's sad but true, and a very good point. I also enjoy it, but I understand that hardcore sim racers won't. But hey, that's fine. It might not necessarily be for you. It's something different. And just to wrap up this one in particular, there is a game coming out called Samson very soon. We've got an article on the website that Martin wrote. He described it as a gritty car chase game. So you are driving around. It's in America somewhere. It looks like a spiritual successor to Driver, and it's from some former developers of Just Cause and Mad Max. It's kind of indie. It's cheap. Will it be any good? We'll find out in a month or two. I think it's out in April. Okay. And then, speaking of the email newsletter again, I think we had a response, didn't we, about Project Moza Racing again and their factory driver program.
So yeah, double plug for the Traction Control newsletter this week. Thank you very much. So last week, Texas or no Texas, we did a piece on Project Moza Racing, Down But Not Out, which was essentially a opinion piece on the interview that you, Tom, did with Kevin Boland, co-founder, CTO at Straight 4 Studios, which is a great interview. If you've not listened to it, go onto the Traction YouTube channel and have a listen. It's quite lengthy, but if you're interested in... It is a bit long. But if you're interested in the processes that studios go through in order to make a game, and in this case, in particular, test a game, I found it quite interesting. He also said quite a lot about how he's developing the trees in the game, which was something, he said, I'm having a problem with the trees right now. If you're ever wondering what the day-to-day for a game developer is, apparently trees, big part. Anyway, one of the bits that he spoke about was their factory driver program, which was a web platform along with a Discord server where sim racers, real world drivers, enthusiasts, gamers, etc., went through an application process to be part of the program. And then the idea is that they would give feedback on the cars, the game, the driving, the physics, the force feedback, etc., 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 which obviously sounds like a great idea. However, Kevin's retrospective on the program is that essentially what it did was create a bit of an echo chamber. Anyway, so that was the focus of last week's newsletter, and I had somebody respond. And at the bottom of every newsletter, I invite anybody. You can just email me with any thoughts, comments that you have on this week's edition. Somebody did, but they wanted to stay anonymous, and the reason they want to stay anonymous is because they were in the factory driver program, okay, which I understand that they don't want to name themselves, because I'm assuming there was probably some sort of NDA about what you can and can't share, and obviously they're just staying. So I was worried, but actually, what he said was, he or she said was that actually everything that we said in the newsletter was broadly correct, and that there were quite a lot of loud voices in the Discord who were saying that everything was fantastic. It was the best game they've ever driven. But what it didn't do was allow them to properly test things like the career mode or the AI, or even things like settings. So he thought it was, or she thought it was too condensed, too short, and before they knew it, they were kicked out. Everybody was out. The program was disbanded, and there was no real opportunity to kind of follow up. So yeah, really interesting to hear their perspective. It's quite lengthy, but there's a lot of stuff in there they've asked me not to share. But it's interesting that what they are saying tallies exactly with what Kevin thought.
One thing I do just want to be clear on, from my perspective anyway, on the factory driver program, is I don't think the fault lies with people for getting excited about the game and hyping up, even if they weren't being as constructive as they could have been, because obviously, everyone's experience is different, and some of the cars are actually pretty good to drive, in my opinion. So maybe it's just a lack of the negative stuff. But at the end of the day, it's still down to the developers to be able to decipher that and go, well, we should know better. If we're developing the game, we should be able to tell that it's good or not good, and we shouldn't just listen to that feedback and ignore any critical stuff. So I wouldn't put the blame on the people in the program, even if some of them, I'm sure, didn't help the feedback, because you've got to have a mixture of opinions anyway, right?
Totally. And actually, that was kind of my takeaway when I got this email from our anonymous factory driver. It was a nice reminder that actually everything we talk about whenever we're doing reviews of games, hardware, etc., there are real people behind it. And in this case, it was actually the community. And so I did read back the email newsletter and think, you know what? I wonder if I should have made it more clear that the blame lies with the system that was in place, not those who took part in the system. Because if you're just a enthusiastic sim racer and you kind of get hyped up, or maybe you did genuinely love it, right? All of this stuff is to an extent, I guess, subjective, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. Just to reiterate, it's not the fault of the drivers. That it probably the blame sits squarely at the process.
Yeah, it's good that first of all people can reply to the email, so please do that with feedback, and also that sometimes when you have these interviews, that there's an element of practice and PR massaging, I'm sure, for everybody ahead of time. But this was some random feedback that we received that did, like you said there, tally with the developer's opinion about that one particular element where the factory driver program through the forum was perhaps a bit of an echo chamber and full of sycophants, allegedly. Anyway, on that note, we should end this podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Let us know in the YouTube and Spotify comments your thoughts, but also questions and topics we can discuss in the future. We always have the community comment section every week, so that's been a great help. Also, follow, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Sign up to Tom's email newsletter. Visit the website every day, and we will be back next week.